I mean, they won because you're here, Timmy. I don't know what else to tell you. Good afternoon and welcome to the Carton Show, filling in for the Hurt today.
Yeah.
Great to have you here. We have a former Miami Heat rock star, Tim Hardaway.
Yes.
We have a former legendary Celtic in Isaiah Thomas.
Yes.
And we've got Cody back. Yeah, well, it's a wrap. I guess Miami couldn't win a Game 7 in Boston.
Yes, they can.
Unfortunately, this entire game came down to the first possession for the Boston Celtics when my man behind you, Jayson Tatum, rolled his ankle, making Gabe Vincent the MVP of Game 7 for laying on the floor so that Tatum's ankle could hit it and roll awkwardly. And unfortunately, that's the way it goes. But let's start you off with all the headlines. That, of course, is number one, that despite their valiant effort in getting back into the series and forcing a Game 7 and being an 8-point favorite at home, the Boston Celtics, frankly, could not overcome the injury to Jayson Tatum. And then you add to it the fact that Jaylen Brown had a tough game with 8 turnovers, as many turnovers as he had made field goals. And that's a recipe for a bad home loss.
Yeah, unfortunately for Tatum that he got hurt the very first play of the game. I felt for the team. I felt for him because he couldn't come out and perform the way he wanted to perform and had to perform. And it just hampered him all game.
Sure.
We just saw it just hampered him all game. He wasn't aggressive. He couldn't get to the rim. He couldn't get to where he needed. He couldn't play with the basketball like he normally played. He couldn't get this lift off. So it was kind of tough for him. But you know what the Miami Heat did, what they supposed had done. Even if he was healthy, I think they would have done the same thing.
Yep.
And, I say this. You can't start off the game missing your first 10 threes and expect to
And that's
win
what
a
Boston did.
basketball
0 for 10 out of the gate, Isaiah, which begs the question, doesn't somebody say, hey, fellas, maybe take the ball to the goal and stop relying on outside shots? It seemed like once Tatum went down, which is obviously the first possession of the game, it was just perimeter guys. All right, you want it this time, I'll take it next time. There was no driving to the goal early on.
I think when Tatum got hurt, it sucked the air out of the arena.
Sure.
If you remember in Game 5 when they played in Boston, it was so loud from the jump. I think that's what controlled their win in Game 5. Game 7, it was like the complete opposite after the first play. The crowd only got in the game every now and then. I think you got to tip your hat off to the Miami Heat. They came in, they stuck to what their game plan was. They allowed them to shoot contested threes, and obviously when they seen the ball wasn't going in, they stuck to that game plan. And Boston just continued to shoot threes. Like Tim said earlier, there was no driving kicks. There was no getting in the paint, mixing things up. It was strictly we're gonna outshoot them on the three-point line and try to stay in the game. And
they only shot 21% last night. And it's not that Miami, came out of the gates high-flying offensively. They didn't. Right. Boston played very good defense, even with a hobble Jayson Tatum. Miami only barely scored 100 points in the game. So there's a couple narratives that come out of this before we fast forward to the NBA Finals. One, of course, is the injury to Tatum. You didn't get the Boston Celtics' best player on the court healthy with a chance to dominate and win a Game 7 and have the most epic comeback in the history of the NBA playoffs. Unfortunately, the other narrative is that of Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown did not have a good game, and that's being kind, right? Mm-hmm. He didn't step up and take over a game and dominate the way we know he's capable of. And that then lends itself to the question of, can the dynamic duo of Brown and Tatum ever get over the hump and actually win a championship? But before you answer that, let's revel in the fact, that the Boston Celtics did not come all the way back. To be fair, it's a tough time right now to be a Boston fan. Sure, the Patriots have the greatest comeback of all time in the Super Bowl. Okay, great. Sure, the Boston Red Sox beat the New York Yankees in 2004 after being down 0-3. But right now, things are kind of tough in Boston. People are having a tough time in Boston right now. The Red Sox are damn near in last place. The Bruins coughed up the greatest regular season of all time. The Patriots are the worst team in the AFC East. And the Boston Celtics lost 1, 2, 3 home playoff games in the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, can they ever win with Brown and Tatum?
Yes, they can. What comes around goes around, comes around.
Yes.
What went around back then is coming back around full circle right now for all the teams there in Boston, which sometimes happens, And I am optimistic. I think that Tatum and Brown can coexist. You just got to pay them. You just got to pay them.
Well, they're both coming up on major contract extensions. Brown first, then Tatum.
Right, but I just think that these two complement each other. And it didn't happen last night, but these two guys need to stay together. And I'm going to tell you this. It's a lot of teams that would love to have Brown. New York Knicks.
I'll give you RJ Barrett right now if you want.
Miami Heat. LA Lakers. A lot of teams will want Brown. If you don't want to pay him, sign him and trade him.
Yes.
But
let me just mention real quick for Brown, who comes up before Tatum does. If he stays or it's a sign and trade, it's a 5-year, just shy of $300 million contract. If he doesn't get a deal done with Boston, it'd be a 4-year max contract at $1.84. You are talking about a $100 million difference. Yeah. So the Boston Celtics, look, they're in control of it. You could sign him and trade him. Yeah. You can sign him and keep him. But if you don't sign him, it costs the man $100 million.
But if you sign and trade him, you're still going to have another $100 million guy
right,
coming. But I tell you this, you need two superstars on your team. Yeah. And you got to pay your two superstars $40 to $50 million to have a team, and you gotta create a team around them. So I think that with Tatum and Brown, they can coexist. They can win a championship. They went to the NBA championship last year.
Yep.
3 years ago they went to the NBA championship in a bubble.
Bubble doesn't count.
Yes, it does count. It does count. And forget what you're talking about. It does count because they agreed to it. All right? I see your lips moving. But, I say this. Yeah. I will keep him and keep that nucleus together and ride it out because I think they're good with each other. I think this team is good with each other.
Tim, I think you make the greatest point. Isaiah, you can speak to this as well. I'm a Knicks fan. I would love to have a team good enough to go to an NBA final, back it up with an Eastern Conference final appearance, and know that for the next, let's say, 5 to 7 years, I'm in the mix. Yeah. I may not win it, but I know every year right now with Tatum and Brown, I have a chance to be in the conversation, especially when you consider that the Eastern Conference doesn't have the depth that the Western Conference has. Correct. Like there's 28 other teams out there that would trade places talent-wise with the Boston Celtics right now. I'm one of them, which begs the question, can you look at this season for Boston, even with the great comeback in this series, forcing a Game 7 as a failure? Or is that overstating what took place here?
No, I believe it is a failure because they have championships expectations from the jump.
Right.
And just because somebody got hurt, you're the number 1 seed. Like, there's no way you should have got down 3-0 to an 8th seed. Like, to start, and then obviously they came back and tied it up 3-3, and Miami handled the business that they were supposed to. But it's like, it's a failure. They're a championship caliber team the last, 3 or 4 years.
Yes, they are.
And
should be for years to come.
Yeah, when you have max players like that, like the expectation is championship or bust.
Well, I wish I had a failure like that. My New York Knicks haven't been there in 25 years. I was happy to get out of the first round. Hey there, thank you so much for watching The Carton Show. You can subscribe right here to get all the latest bits and segments from the show. And by the way, while you're at it, we have a lot of great shows on FS1, so check them out too.